I've just finished two books. They're the two books that I've wanted to write and have been working on for years. They have been guiding me both personally and professionally for the last 5 years. One of them is a personal book. It's a follow-up to Christmas Sweater, but it is probably the most honest story I've ever told, and it was written for my daughters and my sisters, and it is about conquering abuse, and it is a story that I'll tell you about later, but it's an amazing story. The second book that we just put to bed is Becoming George Washington. And it is the stories of George Washington, the history of George Washington, that my goal on this book was to make you fall in love with George Washington as much as I love him. I love this man. He is my hero. And he is who I want to be as a man. I don't think it's a coincidence that the two stories that impress me the most of probably any leader, and impress me and affect me more than any other story I've heard from on any other president, is George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. George Washington, the story that makes me cry every time I tell it, is the story of him trying to, and he did, stop the revolutionaries from killing Congress. They could have done it, and he stopped them. And he did it with honor and integrity and gentleness of spirit. He stopped them. He saved us from turning into monsters. And they had every reason to want to do that, but he stopped them. And it was only through his honor that he did it. And the second story that makes me mushy every time I read it is the story of Abraham Lincoln at the end of the Civil War, where he lets Lee go back home, lets the soldiers go. They're thinking they're going to be rounded up. Go home. He tells Grant, let them up easy. And then in the second inaugural address, the line that should guide all of our life, with malice toward none. With malice toward none. Those two examples are going to be the examples that will guide my life in the next 12 to 18 months, and I would ask that they would guide yours as well. With malice toward none. Media, politicians, bankers, if you indeed did something wrong and criminal, you will pay for it, but not in the streets, in a courtroom. Under the rule of law, we will abide by the Constitution. We will not become those things that we despise. But there are those that you have linked arms with to get your way because you have your own agenda. You're playing with fire. We will be your friends. We will incarcerate, most likely, after a trial if you did something illegal. But we're not savage animals. And what you're seeing on the streets now is the beginning of man becoming an animal. We're not animals. We're Americans with malice toward none.